following the Blue Iris's expedition to Salisbury Hall last week, we invited local parapsychologist and ghost expert Juliette Gregson into the studio to talk about her experiences of the paranormal on the Fylde Coast. Okay, Juliette Gregson.
Hello.
Thank you for coming in to talk to us today.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we got in touch with you because of because of the story in the Gazette on Monday, which we'll talk about later on. But just give us a brief introduction to who you are and what you do, and what you're interested in, and why you're here today to talk to us.
Why I'm here today? Right. Well, as you've said before, my name's Juliette Gregson. I'm 32. I'm a local lass, or a sand Ronan. Don't be deceived by the accent. I actually had elocution lessons when I was younger. But of course, if you're going to do things like this, it's good to sound polite and professional. Always had an interest in the paranormal or parapsychology. I actually went to the Blackpool and Fylde College and did an A-level in it, and it was the only, I think, college at the time in 2001 that was actually running this. It is a professional qualification, and basically it's just I'm trying to get information together to write a book about Blackpool ghosts, because we've got things like, Yorkshire ghosts, Lancashire ghosts, and I just thought it'd be good if my friends and, the local community could actually help me out with that.
Right. Well, what sort of an area do you think Blackpool and the Fylde Coast is for paranormal activity? Because it's a fairly new area, isn't it, in terms of, and obviously last week we were at Salisbury Hall, and people who listened to this service, of course, will have probably heard that by now, and will know what that's all about. But that was a 16th century, well, before that actually, manor house. But Blackpool's a fairly new community, isn't it, really, in terms of history? So what sort of an area is Blackpool for paranormal activity?
When you actually research the history of Blackpool properly, you can sort of trace it back to the 12th and 13th century with the Clifton family, which is sort of Lytham St Anne's. And if you've ever been round Lytham Hall, very interesting. There's reports of paranormal activity there. You've got various places in South Shore, such as the Pleasure Beach, actually around the area where you're situated here with the ley lines near Squires Gate. Lytham St Anne's, Poulton. I think in St Michael's there's actually a church that's mentioned in the Domesday Book. I'd have to check up on that. So a lot of people think, if it's not like 900 years old, there can't be any, any stories or any activity. Sometimes it can be as recent as about, 50 years ago. Because when you think about it, there's all these places that you think, I bet that's quite spooky. I wonder if we can go around it, and it's just taking the time to actually research it at the end of the day. Okay,
now you say you're a local lass, so obviously you know the area very, very well. What sort of places have you actually, or any particular areas or buildings that you sort of have concentrated on and have had more experiences than others? What are your experiences of actually, having contacts and stuff?
I think my own house, actually my parents' house, and obviously for various reasons I'm not going to say which road.
No, please don't. Let's not make an excuse, same mistake that other local media have done.
My parents' house with the lady who used to live there before. But I'm going to save that one for the book. So,
okay.
Sorry, listeners.
That's right.
But it'll be worth it when I read about it. The local sixth form that I used to go to is St Mary's, which is on the St Walburgers.
Yeah.
A lot of history there, and quite a few strange things happened when I actually attended there in, got to think now, 1990.
Yeah.
So I've sort of documented those, and I'll probably include those in a book at some point. But that was a really strange place, because it used to be a convent.
Of course.
And it's not just me who's seen things either, it's sort of past pupils and people, who my parents know, and I know, and this has happened, and I'm like, good, it's not just me getting mad. Because obviously I'll try to rationalise anything that I hear and try and get proof and try and get evidence, or, film it or take pictures and so on and so forth.
Right. So, but just by talking to you, I get the impression that you're fairly rational, in so much that I know there are an awful lot of people who just assume that there are activity in every single location, but you clearly are sceptical about some people's accounts and don't take everything as being something paranormal. A lot of things can be easily explained, can't they?
Oh, definitely, of course. It's, if I was to run a TV programme, I wouldn't do it just for the ratings and just so I could sell more merchandise. Like, it's Juliette Gregson on, think of a name of, the Ghost Paragon. I'd probably call it Haunted Socks or something, just to be silly. But I would sort of try and rationally and scientifically explain it. Yes, there are things you can't explain, but there are other things that are very easily faked. You can cold read people, you can rig tables. It's like when they do Ouija boards on television programmes. How dangerous is that if you don't know what you're doing?
Of course.
And anybody, who's done something like this and something has happened, or even white witches, you know, for want of a better explanation, they'll say, "Okay, do you know what you're doing?" But most people think it's fun. It can be quite dangerous.
Right. So, what are your experiences in terms of actually seeing things? Is there anything you can tell us? Maybe that's not going to ruin the book. But I mean, is there something that? What are your experiences, or at least maybe you think you've seen something?
I tend to see people who've just departed at funerals, and this goes for family members, but also people that I don't know.
Right.
Which is kind of weird. Or going into, you know, people's houses and saying, "Have you heard something in your bedroom?" Or do you get weird things happening in the kitchen? And they kind of look at me and go, "Okay, how do you know? You're being spooky again." And I say, "Well, it's a feeling."
Yeah.
And then sort of seeing things out of the corner of my eye, you know, and thinking, "Okay, is this me?" No, it's not. You know, there are things that I do see. There's probably, you know, a wonderful technical explanation for it. And I wish I could come up with a rational explanation. I mean, sometimes I think, yes, right, that's the floorboards.
Yeah.
Or that's such and such a thing. But I remember seeing one at the ice dome, and it was an ice skater who unfortunately, you know, had a very, you know, bad accident. He did die because of a result of this accident. And I found out somebody who actually knew about, you know, the previous skaters, and I described what I had seen. It turns out it was a person I'd seen following me down these stairs. It was actually this person who had died.
Right.
And I was like, okay, how can I have made that up? I mean, there's certain things you can get pre-information, but this. Spooky.
So, I mean, so take that as an example. I mean, just trying to get across, because obviously, again, as people who listen to this regularly know that a group of us are absolutely 100%, and we'll stand by this forever now, that we definitely saw something at Salisbury Hall last week. There's no doubt about that. But when you actually saw this this person, what kind of form did it take? I mean, is it people's preconceived ideas that it's white and you can see straight through it? Is that the kind of thing that you saw, or did it look pretty solid and pretty human, as if it's really there, or you know?
Transparent. I mean, you can have, you know, you can see a full form figure, so to speak. You can see maybe just the top half, sometimes a head, which obviously would alarm me, and trust me, I'd be the first one to run out of the area I was in, screaming, "Ah!" as I go. You know, now I'm not fearless, I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I would try and think, okay, is it a trick of the light? Is it somebody, you know, say if you went on a proper ghost tour who was trying to use a projector, you know, that's been used before, when people have gone around haunted houses and haunted establishments.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much information out there you can read up on, or, you know, through word of mouth talking to other people as well. And then sometimes, it's not just people, it could be like dogs, cats, pets, even places, which is a weird one. I mean, I've never experienced that, it's more with people.
Right.
I mean, how alarming would that be? You know, you sort of look up, where's the tower? It's not there. You've been transported back in time. There are probably people who've had those sorts of experiences.
Well, people have. I mean, we mentioned before, just off air there, about Chingle Hall, and I remember hearing the story about somebody who went to Chingle Hall to pay a deposit for an overnight stay, and put it through a letterbox and of an old oak door at the front, and heard voices as if there was a party going on. And when they went back the next day, there was no oak door, and the owner had said, well, there was one a few hundred years ago, but we've traced it in the history, but it wasn't there anymore. And this guy is said to have had an experience where, I don't know whether it's kind of some sort of, I don't know, hole in time or something. I don't know how the heck you explain that, but this door wasn't there when he went back the following day. It had all completely changed. And the fact that he'd actually managed to put this thing, I think he put it through a letterbox or under the door, but the fact was that what's actually there now is an iron door, and there's no gap, so he couldn't have put it through. Wow. But it somehow got through, and it's just bizarre. And I've heard one or two stories like that. So I know what you mean. It's not just people or even animals. It can sometimes be.
It can be places. It's like, you know, for example, say if you and I went to the same place, you know, and investigated, you would write a different account of things, and I would. Although we would both be there, our viewpoints would be different at the end of the day. I mean, you could argue this until the cows come home. You really could.
I mean, obviously you've not heard our CD yet, but I know Chris has burnt you off a copy of that so you can listen to it. But I hope you find it interesting. I mean, some of it really does just set the ground, the framework of the whole place for the first part of it. But although you've not heard it, what do you think about the experience that we think we had? I mean, it was 7 people seeing the same thing and looking at it and reacting to it for a good 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, that is pretty unusual, isn't it? It's usually only one or two people that see it.
Yeah, and then you sort of turn around and say to the person perhaps who's a couple of feet away, "Did you see that?" Or, did you hear that? And they kind of look at you and go, huh?
Yeah.
What? You had a drink? And you go, no. And then, 7 or 8 people, yes. It'd be nice to perhaps get some fresh faces, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's not the right phrase, is it? Maybe get some new people who don't know you.
Yeah.
Just sort of go in and sort of say, okay, without any preconception, without doing any history or research in the place. I must admit, I haven't. I've kind of looked and went, oh, that's a nice place. I wouldn't mind going around there.
Yeah.
I would get people to go in cold, so you get different viewpoints, and get them maybe to write things down, take photographs, take video or camcorder footage, or maybe even just to sit there with their eyes closed and think, what can I hear? Rather than relying on eyesight, which of course can be deceptive.
Yeah, that's right. It was certainly a bizarre experience because, you're right. We actually knew that this white grey lady, whatever you want to call her, does actually haunt supposedly Salisbury Hall, and so many people have seen it. But we weren't. I certainly wasn't actively looking for her when I saw her, but it just seemed to appear, and everyone else saw it too. And the strange thing was that I half expected, even when we were seeing it, that we'd get out there and we'd see it was a shadow or it was a trick of the light. But when she disappeared, it was obvious that whatever we had seen had gone, because the whole shape, the whole colour of the tree or whatever that she was stood next to had completely changed. So we were definitely seeing something there. It was bizarre. It really was strange. But anyway, have a listen to the CD and see what you think.
Sometimes you get reports of ghosts, and it's not just around this area, that they will appear specifically, perhaps every 10 years or every 50 years, or at a specific time at night, maybe midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes in the afternoon. People assume, oh, I must go ghost hunting at midnight. Not necessarily.
Right.
It's when you least expect it. Which is bizarre, because you think, you're there with your torches and your sleeping bags, but sometimes it can be just as, you're walking through a graveyard, or you're just walking past somewhere, and you think, what was that? It is weird, but, because most people aren't susceptible to it, or they're not, open-minded, for want of a better phrase. Yeah. It's like, God doesn't exist because you can't see him. Well, how do you know? You don't do. The wind exists, you can't see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's quite a simple explanation. People
Yeah.
go, blah, blah. And what about creation and Einstein's theory and this and that? You could discuss this for ages. You really could.
So, are there any other sort of specific locations in Blackpool? We've heard a lot recently about Mains Hall at Singleton, which is actually very similar to Jingle Hall. Looks very similar when you see the picture. And as I said to you, I went round it about a year ago, and supposedly the ghost of a woman haunts it, and she's often seen looking out of a window that's not there anymore, that's been boarded up. But you're shaking your head at me now, violently. I wish people could see this, but are you a bit sceptical about places like that, because they've gone quite commercial, haven't they?
Oh yes, ghost hunting is commercially viable. It's like psychic phone lines that you will see, even in our local Blackpool papers. You open up some of the, trashy magazines that we've got, and it's like, ring 0898, blah blah blah. It only costs you £1.50 a minute, and you're thinking, oh, these poor bereaved people, miss their husbands, their wives, their boyfriends, girlfriends so much, and they're spending how much money? It's such a con, and it really annoys me.
But someone like Mains Hall, you were pretty vigorously then.
There's various bits that have been added on over the years, and there was actually something in the local paper here where you had the present owner going, oh yes, we've had such and such body. Obviously I can't mention for legal reasons, because I don't want you guys to get sued, or me. And the former owner wrote into the Gazette, really scathing, saying, you're just interested in the money. I lived there, I think it was like 15 years, the previous owner. She said there's absolutely nothing. You're just jumping on the bandwagon. And I thought, yay, go on. It is, they're doing some kind of ghost thing there, I think, over the next couple of months. And it's so expensive. It's like £95.
It is.
It's either £75 or £95.
Yeah, Jason Carl, from who's, of course, used to be on Most Haunted, is doing that particular thing. He's actually bought a place in Preston, and he lives in Lancashire now. He's made Lancashire his kind of new home. Yeah. And
must like the place.
I know that he's approached Salisbury Hall, and they're actually reluctant to do it.
Yes, it's nice, and sometimes you do need these old properties that do need money, but there are other ways to do that, rather than, getting a lot of people traipsing through going, oh, well, I saw this and I saw that. If I had a house like that, I wouldn't do it.
No.
I just wouldn't. I couldn't.
Maybe this is why Chingle Hall's not accessible then. I mean, the guy who owns it now won't let anybody go around it, which is a shame because, of course, it's mostly Britain's most haunted house, isn't it?
He's got his morals right.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah,
it's annoying for the rest of us who think,
yes.
oh, we'd love to go around.
Exactly. The previous owner exploited it, was quite happy to exploit it and charge people money, but he won't, really.
I mean, it's like people who have, clairvoyant, or they can do tarot, or they can see. They see a lot of people see it as a gift and they don't really charge for it. And other people just make an absolute load of money out of it, and then, you can be really vague with it. I mean, it's so easy, I've got your full name, I could go on the internet and find out where you live, and various other pieces of information. It's that easy.
Right.
So if you had, if you came for a reading and I was, spooky psychic, I could do a cold reading with you and tell you things, and you'd be like, oh, wow! And I'd be there going, thank you very much, that's 40 quid.
Yeah.
It's very easy, but there are other people out there who can genuinely do things like that and would tell you things that only you would know.
Sure. Okay, and what about locations further afield if we go away from the Foul Coast? I mean, obviously, I presume you've been to other places in different parts of the country or whatever. Anywhere that stands out particularly that has maybe had more activity than anywhere else?
I think Scotland, actually. I think is a personal favourite probably of mine. I mean, London, yes, a lot of research, you can pick up off the internet. But with Scotland, there's like little villages, things like that. It's the most obscure places, even in Cumbria or Scotland. Everybody's got that little place that everyone thinks, ooh, that is a bit, spooky. I'm not just saying, Lancashire is the paranormal centre point.
No, we're not too bad for supposed locations, are we, I suppose? But yeah. And do you find as well that these places that have such a reputation of being haunted, they're probably not the best places maybe to go and look? It's often in the most obscure, insignificant almost places where you probably get the most activity, do you think?
Or even the ones that are most busy, like commercial places. I mean, there's a lot along the Blackpool seafront that over the years has been knocked down and then built up something else. I mean, let me think. The bowling place used to be the Lobster Pot. It's Super Bowl? Is it Super Bowl now?
Yeah, of course.
That used to be the Lobster Pot.
Yeah.
Showing my age now. Where you could roll the boot.
I remember.
And before that, if you go back, there's so much history along that bit there, but then again, you've got sort of little pockets when South Shore was being built, and Bispam and Leighton. Most of us, if we're going past Leighton, always think, oh, right, I know I'm in Leighton, I can see the high-rise flats. But before that, it was just normal houses, and they're quite close together. And then Bispam, Thornton even, it's just sort of getting your nose sometimes and thinking, oh, that's quite interesting. Maybe you're trying to piece it together and talk to people who've lived there for like 50, 60 years. It's all very interesting. Yeah,
sure. So how do you go about sort of researching that? I mean, because obviously we've looked on your. I know the Gazette called it a website, but it's actually your forum, isn't it?
It's
within a website.
I'd like to do a website, but to me the information goes out of date quite quickly. To me, if I could afford it, which I can't at the moment, I would probably do a website and it'd be like, okay, here's some pictures, here's some static stories, and then the most up-to-date things I would put on the forum because you can reply immediately.
Yeah.
There are various sites across, the United States and in Britain. They do have a website, a huge forum, with like 2,000-3,000 members, and it's just trying to bring everybody together going, oh, I saw this, and they're helping each other. They haven't even met. Some things you can research by book. Some things, yes, you can Google it. And other things, you'll only find out if you talk to the people in the area.
Okay. Because of course there's this one on your forum that I seem to remember reading an article about it before. I think it was in the Polton Life magazine about this thing that's supposed to be around Carlton somewhere. I mean, obviously that's an old story because it was first sort of reported back in the 30s, wasn't it? About this, we should just explain for anyone who doesn't know about it. Was it a cab driver?
It was.
You can tell the story because you know it better than I do.
Oh, definitely. It's quite bizarre. I mean, my partner Ian actually lives in Thornton, and sometimes I will drive that way past the crematorium.
Yeah.
And I kind of go, I always look in the mirror as I'm going past, thinking, is that a tree? But could be due to the story. It's that you can work yourself up into complete paranoia and then kind of go, I need the loo, but there's no loo nearby. Way back in the mist of time, in the sort of 20s and 30s, round by the crematorium, there was seen a lady, and rumour has it, or story goes, that a taxi driver actually picked her up, and then, said, oh, I'd like to be dropped off by the gates of the crematorium, and when he actually turned around and got there, she wasn't there. Well, of course, he's got nobody else to collaborate this story with, but a lot of people have seen somebody wandering around by that lane and inside the crematorium from, the 30s onwards. Can't say I've seen anything, but I've never actually spent the night there. I'd like to.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of the time there's so many locations around here, but it's just getting organised and getting permission.
Yeah.
And sort of saying, well, we're just interested, we're not out to make any money. We just want to investigate it scientifically.
Yeah, but there have been some
Brilliant.
fairly recent accounts, though, haven't there, of people seeing something around there?
When you actually look at the history around that area and the maps, these old lanes and where some of the houses used to be, obviously they don't exist because they've been knocked down.
Yeah.
Because you think, well, how far back does it go? Unless you've actually been in the crematorium, it actually does go back quite far away. And you can actually get from Polton to there. You used to be able to. And another friend of mine used to see, she said, she's seen a couple of odd things around there. She still lives around that area. It is weird, is it, because I was a child, was it just my imagination or was it something else? But I think the more people that see it that aren't connected with each other, obviously, they didn't have the internet back then.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't know each other.
No.
Explain that one.